Hey, it's Hunt. You found Hunt on Saints. We're talking black and gold football. Do us a favor. Hit the like button, share your comments below, and hit that subscription button so you can get all of our content. Enjoy. We certainly want to talk about the New Orleans Saints and what they did in the draft over the weekend. To do that, we go down to New Orleans and chat with our guy, Sean Fazende from Fox 8 in New Orleans. Joins us on the Jim's Firearms Hotline right now. Sean, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Doing quite well. I'm curious your overall thoughts before we start talking specifically about players, about the Saints draft tactics, about using those fifth-round picks, only one trade up. What did you think about Mickey Loomis and Dennis Allen's approach to this draft?
I thought it was decent. I think you got, I'm sure you'll ask specifically about players, but I think you got one guy that can be, a 10-year guy and a tackle that you drafted at Oregon State. I like Kool-Aid. The player, not the drink, but I like the drink too. But anyway, the player. Spencer Rattler certainly adds some intrigue, but you said something interesting. The biggest miss, in my opinion, the biggest disappointment, in my opinion, was the fact that they weren't able to figure out a way to get into that third and fourth round gap, just because as those players are coming off in that gap, you really saw some guys that could have really been perhaps a little bit more of an instant impact type player than maybe you might get just in the entirety of this class. But overall, given the hand that they had, the board that they had, I'm not mad at it too much. I think overall they filled their biggest need. They came away with a surefire day one starter at tackle, and we'll see what happens with the rest of the guys.
You mentioned tackle. Taliesin Fuaga is the tackle that they bring in from Oregon State. If Ryan Ramczyk is healthy, what does it mean for him? I know what it means if Ryan Ramczyk is not.
Well, look, man, they drafted a guy who had 700 snaps at right tackle, so I think they're planning for life without Ryan Ramczyk.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a bonus at this point if Ramczyk is healthy. But if Ramczyk is healthy, then yeah, I think Fuaga becomes a option at the left tackle position. It's something that he says he could do. It's something Dennis Allen believes they can do. It's something they'll have to sort out through the training camp preseason process. And I think it certainly would be a possibility he could be the guy on the left side competing with, who knows? I mean, I guess at this point it would be Trevor Penning and whoever they may or may not add in this, post-draft wave of free agency. Let me just say, that would be the best case scenario. If somehow Ryan Ramczyk isn't just healthy, but he's back to the player or close to the player he once was, that would solve a lot of issues. But unfortunately, the organizational moves and even their own comments lead you to believe that perhaps that's not exact. That's wishful thinking, but it's probably not close to the reality at this point.
Was not surprised to see the Saints move up a little bit. They're in round 2. I was surprised at the position that they drafted at cornerback with Kool-Aid McKinstry. What was your reaction there?
Yeah, I mean, that was a guy they had a high grade on. To get him at 41 was certainly, in their mind, good value. I know a lot of draft prospect boards had him in that high 20s, low 30s range. The cornerback out of Alabama. He's a guy that plays press man. If you know Dennis Allen, he loves the press man scheme, particularly on third down, where they play that third down two-man system with the press man type technique. So, yeah, certainly think that's a player that DA likes. And, look, DA comes from the secondary defensive backfield coaching tree. So he's going to make sure his secondary and defensive backfield, if he falls in love with a player, he's going to go ahead and get that player. And they're going to be coached well at that position. So I think he's a guy that can get on the field. Don't know if he's a regular starter at either outside or the nickel position. And I'm sure it leads to questions about Marshawn Lattimore. I still think there's something there in terms of, what could potentially happen. But as of now, Lattimore is a member of the New Orleans Saints. And if he is and he plays and he's the player he once was or he's been, then I think that's great. You have one of the most loaded cornerback rooms in football. If not, then you have a guy that they believe could come in and be a steady contributor right away, depending on how much. And look, he made a good point as well. Last year they did play a lot of cornerbacks. I mean, they had a lot of injuries up there, and Dennis Allen, like I said, he comes from the defensive backfield, and he always says you can never have enough good corners, and they got a good one in Kool-Aid McKinstry.
Round 5, Spencer Rattler. You said it added some intrigue. Does it add some potential competition down the line at quarterback?
Well, it's instant competition for the number 2.
Yeah.
It's a loaded quarterback room right now. They're not going to have 5 guys by the time they get to training camp. That's a guarantee. How you divvy up the reps? I mean, you just can't. So they'll have 1 or 2 less in that quarterback room. It certainly adds intrigue to the Jake Haener, Spencer Rattler competition. I've been, since that pick, I've really been studying him a lot. intrigue is the perfect word because there's some flashes there, but there's also some inconsistencies, and there's some really good qualities. I don't know if there's a great quality. And there's a guy that played a lot of college football. He's clearly matured, as a player and obviously as a person. I know the QB1 thing, that didn't even factor into the Saints' mind. I mean, I know that was kind of the talk out there when he was a kid, but he was a kid back then. But yeah, look, at 150 for a guy, I checked a lot of the publication prospect grades. The lowest I saw Spencer Rattler was 89. So to get him at 150, I mean, that's a situation where it's like, wow, we can't believe this guy's still here. Let's just go ahead and grab him because he's so far up on our draft board than everyone else we could have picked at this position.
We knew they were going to get a pass catcher at some point, whether it was a tight end, maybe Brock Bowers early or a wide receiver. Bub Means comes off the board in the 5th. What do you give his chances of making the team?
Decent shot, bigger body receiver. Can make some tough catches, which is what they want to, which is what they've been able, or what they've expressed that they want with this current wide receiver core. To kind of a young group, so it's not like he's coming in and facing a lot of wily old veterans. I mean, there's a lot of young guys in that group that's going to play, right away. So I think he certainly has a chance. Just learn the system, which everybody on the team is learning a new system. That's the quickest way to get on the field. And if he can be that contested catch guy, absolutely, I think he's got a shot to make the roster.
In the last 5th rounder, Jalen Ford, linebacker out of Texas, super productive in Austin. What does that linebacker group look like right now?
Yeah, I think his ticket initially is going to be special teams, and just looking at his resume, it sounded like, or it looks like, he's the guy that embraced special teams even in college, which is something you don't necessarily see. He played a ton of football for Texas, logged a lot of snaps. Seems like he's got the right makeup to come in. You got Demario Davis, who's the ageless wonder, but who knows how much longer he's going to play. Pete Werner coming up into a contract year this year, played okay last year. I didn't think he was quite as good last year as he was in year 2. You got Willie Gay. So he'll battle for a roster spot. He's going to battle his way through when it comes to special teams. I think that's his ticket onto the roster, and who knows what could happen after that. I don't necessarily project him to be a starter or a regular contributor on defense. I think realistically, he would be a special teams guy.
And then in round 6 and round 7, looking at the line of scrimmage, Christian Boyd, defensive tackle, and then Josiah Ezram, an offensive tackle in the 7th round. Just kind of swings at the line of scrimmage there?
Yeah, I know Boyd was a name that had popped up quite a bit. Northern Iowa connection is interesting around here with the Trevor Penning thing. And they were teammates and went up against each other in college. I mean, who knows if that was a good battle or not. But, look, he was a guy that, you saw his name floated out there quite a bit pre-draft-wise. So to get him in the 6th round, perhaps it's good value. And then the 7th round tackle out of Eastern Kentucky is a huge human being. I mean, huge human being. And again, they need offensive linemen. But, I can break down each player and say they each have a chance, but collectively, 5 guys on day 3 after pick 150, the realistic chances of all 5 of those guys making the initial roster, in my opinion, is slim. They could, surprise us, but in a draft class where most agree after the top, say, 100 to 125 prospects, it really dropped off. To have 5 picks well after that, I think you kind of sense what I'm getting at here. I think it would be hard for all 5 of those guys to make the initial roster.
Was there a undrafted free agent signing or two that piqued your interest?
Yeah, I like the tight end out of Colorado State, Holker. Very productive last year for Colorado State. Ran a nice diversity of routes when you really watch him line up in line or in the slot. What he was able to do, he really was a weapon for them. So surprised to see him get to the undrafted ranks there, but they were able to snag him. And then I like the running back out of ULL because I thought they would address that position, just given where they're at that position and given their history with undrafted running backs. I think he certainly has a chance as well. Canody, is that his name? Out of UL. So I think he's got a decent shot. And then, look, I mentioned this in the pre-draft mock draft season. I thought they would invest possibly with so many day 3 picks in a specialist at punter in particular, and they got the punter from Vanderbilt in the undrafted ranks. I think that could be a competition no one sees coming, but that could be something where you could add some value there if the punter comes in and is able to, outplay Headley. I think that could certainly help when you talk about just, the fine line of winning and losing in the NFL. To have a little bit better production out of your punter, I think could go a long way.
No question about it. We know that the Saints, were kind of looking around at offensive tackle as far as free agents. and Mekhi Becton was one of the names that was kind of rumored, and he's now signed with Philadelphia. Do you still expect the Saints to sign a veteran free agent at offensive tackle?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I can't believe I'm saying this because I don't think I've ever said this, but they need to sign Andrews Peat. I mean, because he's out there, he knows the system, and it's not just tackle. He can play guard as well. In fact, there were times he was better as a guard, although last year he played tackle and kind of saved them a little bit up front along the offensive line. And I was thinking about this. Okay, where does Trevor Penning ultimately settle in? Which is, they still have hopes for him to figure it out. But is he a guard or is he a tackle? And whatever position he takes, the other one's open. Left guard or left tackle is open. So Pete has played both and played both pretty effectively. And with what's available right now, he would be option A on my list to bring back in black and gold, just because you need the depth of that position. You need not just depth, you need talent at that position as well. So I would have no problem if they brought back Andrews Peat.
How realistic do you think that is?
We try to get something out of Mickey pre-draft with that, but he just said he's a free agent, so that's about it. He didn't really say much about it. I don't know. There is a new system. There is a new offensive line coach. Perhaps they're looking at a different type of offensive lineman that could be a little bit more agile, a little bit more movement skills up front. Maybe the new offensive coordinator has someone in mind that we just don't know about yet. I just know for us, to cover this team and understand what's available and what, at the time of the calendar where you can grab someone. To me, it just seems like a very realistic option.
He's on Twitter at Sean Fazende, Fox 8. He is Sean Fazende of Fox 8, joining us here talking a little bit of black and gold. Sean, thanks for the time, man.
Yeah, no problem.
Hey, it's on. Thanks for watching Hunt on Saints. Before you leave, help us out a little bit. Hit that like button, leave your comments in the section below, and hit that subscribe button so you get all our content right here from Hunt on Saints. We'll see you next time.